Everybody knew what was going on behind my back. My buddies, my business partner, even her own mother. They all told me the same thing, just forgive her. But I didn't. Instead, I torched every piece of her world she thought was safe. I never pictured myself as the type of guy who'd lose himself in someone like that. By 38, I figured I had a decent grip on who I was. I was Grant Bailey, the dependable, detail-oriented brain behind Bailey and More Advertising. Trevor and I started the agency from scratch right after college, building it from late-night dorm talks into one of the fastest-growing firms in all of Denver. He was the people guy. I handled the ideas. That balance? It's what made us work. As for my love life, nothing to brag about. A few relationships that fizzled before they had a chance to light up. Not because I didn't try, I just wasn't easy to love. I'm not the type who opens up fast. But when I do, I'm all in. Then came the night I met Vanessa Doyle. Everything shifted, though I didn't realize it at the time. It happened at one of Trevor and Rachel's well-planned dinner parties, the kind where Rachel played social chess, setting people up like it was her side gig. "Grant, have you met Vanessa?" Rachel asked, guiding the striking redhead toward me. Her hair was like autumn flames and her eyes had this sharp gleam. She looked confident, maybe too much so. Smart, too. There was something calculating about her. Honestly, I wasn't impressed. She knew she was attractive and carried herself like she expected the world to revolve around it. So, I dodged Rachel's matchmaking efforts for almost a year. If Vanessa showed up, I found a reason to leave early. Simple as that. Then came the night Trevor asked for a favor. Vanessa's date ditched her before a Hamilton show. "Please, man," he said. Rachel's worried about her. "I'm not going on a pity date," I pushed back. "You need a break," Trevor replied. "When's the last time you saw a show?" That night shattered every expectation I had. Vanessa wasn't pushy or flashy. She kept to herself, soft-spoken and polite, keeping a respectful distance. That quiet strength? It pulled me in. During the show, I kept watching her, the way she leaned in during emotional numbers, how she subtly wiped tears away when no one was looking. After that, one coffee date turned into another. What seemed like accidental run-ins became intentional. We really talked. No games, no masks. She made me feel like I mattered, not by shrinking herself, but by letting me believe I saw something in her no one else did. 7 months in, I asked her to be mine. The four of us, me, Vanessa, Trevor, and Rachel, became inseparable. Dinners, weekend trips, the whole picture-perfect setup. I introduced her to my mom, who wrapped her in the kind of love you usually reserve for the daughter you never had. 14 months later, we moved in together, a 3-bedroom house in a quiet spot up north. Vanessa called it our forever nest. She gripped my hand as we signed the papers, and in that moment, it really felt like forever. Those days were golden. Vanessa in the kitchen, making over-the-top meals. Me outside, building a backyard kitchen to match. Evenings spent under the Colorado sky, sipping wine, grilling steaks, music playing low as the sun dipped behind the mountains. But even the prettiest sunsets cast shadows. Vanessa started craving more. More attention, more excitement, more sparkle than our cozy life gave her. I chalked it up to past scars. She'd been hurt before. Maybe she just needed reassurance. Things got worse once I buried myself in work. We'd landed 3 huge contracts, and I was pulling double shifts. Trevor stepped back to be there for Rachel during her pregnancy, so the pressure was on me. Vanessa tried to play it cool, but I could feel the distance growing. One night, I found her sitting alone on our balcony, wine in hand, staring at the dark. "You good?" I asked, resting a hand on her shoulder. She didn't turn. "I'm fine," she said. "Just feel invisible sometimes." I should have caught on right then. That was the first crack. The first tremble before the quake. But I just kissed her head and promised we'd get away for a weekend soon. Her smile? It didn't reach her eyes. I was too wiped out to notice. That Saturday changed everything. We'd barely seen each other in 2 weeks, so I left work early, planning a little surprise. I picked up her favorite lilies and a bottle of Cabernet from Napa, the kind she used to bring home when she wanted to spoil me. When I got home, her car wasn't in the driveway. I called. No answer. Something felt off. So I rang Rachel, who casually said Vanessa was out with coworkers. "On a Saturday?" I asked. "Some event planning thing," Rachel said, a little too fast. "It's busy season." That's when the chill set in. I turned the car around and drove to this new bar downtown, the one Vanessa had been wanting to try. No idea why. Call it instinct, or maybe the part of me that finally stopped ignoring the signs. I spotted her the second I walked in. She was at a high-top table, laughing with a guy I'd never seen before. Definitely not a colleague. The way she leaned into him? The way his hand casually rested on the small of her back? Nope. Not work-related. Not innocent. I didn't say a word. I just stood there and watched. And in that moment, everything inside me broke wide open, and what came next, even I didn't see coming. I didn't storm over. Didn't call her out. Instead, I picked a shadowed corner booth and asked for water, just water. I needed to stay sharp, clear, focused. What I felt wasn't rage. It was colder than that, like something inside me had frozen solid and started splintering. When Vanessa stood up and followed that guy outside for a smoke, I dialed her number. She picked up right away. "Hey, honey," she chirped, a little too brightly. "Where are you right now?" I asked, my voice weirdly calm. "Oh, just dinner with the girls from work," she replied. "It's super loud in here. Can we talk later?" "Sure," I said, and ended the call before she had the chance to say another word. My hands didn't tremble. My heart didn't race. But my fingers were clenched white around the phone. I paid my tab and slipped out before she came back inside. No dramatic scene. No confrontation. I needed space to think. For 3 straight days, I went off-grid. Turned off my phone. Booked a room at a quiet hotel. No calls. No texts. Just silence. Vanessa lost it, started blowing up everyone's phone. Even Rachel showed up at my office, desperate for answers. I dodged them all, working out of coffee shops and client spaces like a ghost with a laptop. When I finally walked through our front door, Vanessa was waiting. She looked different, smaller somehow, eyes dark and sunken like she hadn't slept. The second she saw me, she broke down. "I'm so sorry," she cried, her voice cracking. "I've just been lost. It was only dinner. Nothing happened, I swear." I didn't question her. Didn't ask for a play-by-play. Just nodded, dropped my bag, and walked upstairs. She followed me. "You're sleeping in the guest room?" she asked, sounding hurt. "I need space," I said simply. "Don't you believe me?" Her voice trembled. I turned to her. "I'm working on managing my own emotions. That doesn't mean I trust yours." The next week turned into a parade of her friends, like some weird intervention. First came Jenna, then Ashley, and even Bob from her office. Every one of them had the same script: I was being too harsh. Vanessa still loved me. I gave them all the same question. "Where were you the night she was with him?" That stopped them cold. They'd stumble over their words, avoid eye contact, pivot the topic. I cut each visit short like trimming dead branches. No point holding on to something rotten. One night, Vanessa decided to bring in the cavalry. A little group therapy session hosted by her and her 2 closest friends. I sat quietly as they explained how I was overreacting, how trust was the backbone of any real relationship. I waited, then said, "None of you thought to protect me. So don't expect me to hand out forgiveness." Shannon, Vanessa's old college roommate, stiffened. "It was just a thank you dinner for—" She stopped mid-sentence when Vanessa shot her a look that could cut glass. "For what?" I asked, calm but firm. "For Eric," Shannon finally blurted. "He helped with the contract on last month's event." Eric. That name stuck in my mind like a thorn under the skin. I didn't know him yet, but I made a silent note I would. That night, once everyone had left, Vanessa tried to sit beside me on the couch like nothing happened. I moved to the armchair instead. "How long are you going to punish me?" she whispered, her voice cracking again. "This isn't punishment," I said. "It's called consequence." She grabbed a pillow and hurled it across the room. "It was just dinner, Grant." I looked her dead in the eyes, really looked at her. The woman I thought I knew through and through. "Then why lie about who you were with?" She didn't have an answer. Just more tears. More accusations that I was being cold. That I was making it bigger than it needed to be. That night, I lay in bed wondering how many other just dinners I didn't know about and who exactly Eric was. After that, I stopped engaging. Not out of spite. Not to guilt her. Just pulled away. Quietly. But while I was silent, I was planning. One morning, over coffee, I dropped it like small talk. "We should probably talk about splitting our assets." She stared at me. Then her hand slipped and the mug shattered on the tile floor, coffee splashing across the grout. "You're serious? Over one dinner?" "Over one lie," I corrected. "And everything that came after." "You're insane," she snapped. "We need therapy, not attorneys." I shook my head. Therapy only works when there's something worth fixing. We're past that. The weeks that followed were a roller coaster of her breakdowns. Crying, threats of legal action, even saying she'd hurt herself if I dared to leave. I kept calm through all of it. Showed up for the required reconciliation sessions just to keep things legally clean. After 3 failed sessions, the therapist basically confirmed what I already knew: we saw fidelity through completely different lenses. So the paperwork moved forward. In the meantime, I slowly erased myself from our shared life. Turned down invites, ghosted her friend group, found a bar 25 miles out where no one knew my name or hers. I needed a clean slate. Somewhere without memories clinging to the walls. That's where I met Marlene. She ran the bar, late 50s, sharp eyes, and the kind of presence that made people spill their life stories without realizing it. Used to own a chain of pubs before selling them off to take care of her sick mom. She didn't ask questions, but she saw everything. And in that quiet little bar, without saying much at all, I started piecing myself back together, one quiet drink at a time. But peace wouldn't last long because I hadn't seen the last of Vanessa. One side of the story never tells the whole truth, Marlene said one night as she slid a scotch my way. But if you need quiet, I can zip it. You're the first person who hasn't chosen a side, I replied, gripping the glass. That alone is enough to keep me coming back. One evening, I walked in to find Jenna, Ashley, and Ethan already seated at one of the booths. Vanessa must have sent them. I nodded, let them stay, but set a 10-minute timer on my phone. No more long-winded speeches. No more passive guilt trips. Jenna started with her best apologetic voice. She didn't mean to hurt you. I cut her off immediately. So if I'd slept with a coworker because I was feeling lonely, would that also count as not meaning to hurt Vanessa? Dead silence. I didn't, I clarified, but we both know she did. That's not fair, Ethan jumped in. Vanessa still, Ethan, I said calmly, you've been hooking up with Jan for 11 months. While lecturing me about forgiveness, you've been in Jenna's best friend's bed every Tuesday and Thursday. Their faces turned pale. I didn't yell. Didn't raise my voice. I just laid it all out, one quiet truth at a time. Details I remembered because Vanessa had once shared them with me, never expecting I'd use them. And now I wasn't weaponizing them out of spite, I was clearing the air. You're all like kids playing with matches, I said evenly. You watch the sparks fly, then act shocked when the whole damn house burns down. I stood up, tossed some cash on the table. Do yourselves a favor, stay out of my life for good. As I headed for the door, someone caught up behind me. It was Paul, Ashley's husband, the only one who'd stayed silent the whole time. He extended his hand. I'm sorry, he said. We figured you'd forgive her. Thought you loved her more than the rest of us combined. He paused. Turns out you're the only one who really understood that love has limits. I shook his hand, nodded once, and walked out into the night. When I got home, Vanessa was already asleep. On the dining table sat a pile of files from work. I flipped through them absent-mindedly until I froze on a name I recognized. Eric Langford, Event Coordination Director, Haven Circle Charity. That was him. The guy from the bar. The one Shannon accidentally named the man who had helped with a contract. I stood there for a long moment, letting it all click together. Piece by piece, like a lock finally turning open. I didn't throw the files. Didn't wake her up to confront her. I just opened my laptop. Took less than an hour to pull it all up. Eric Langford had a wide online trail. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Everything was public. And the crazy part? Their connection wasn't even hidden well. Photos from industry events going back over a year. Her standing close. Him smiling too wide. Comments that weren't quite professional. Inside jokes that didn't feel all that inside. I gathered everything. Downloaded it. Sorted it. Backed it up in a secure cloud folder. Not for revenge. Not yet. For clarity. For proof. So I wouldn't second-guess my instincts again. The next morning over coffee, I looked Vanessa in the eye. How long has it been going on with Eric Langford? Her hand froze midair, coffee mug suspended halfway to her mouth. What? Eric Langford, I repeated, calm as ever. Haven Circle. Don't play dumb. Her face twisted, shock first, then panic, then something more calculating. And finally anger. You went through my files? She snapped. That's a violation. How long? I asked again, voice like stone. She set the mug down, slow. It wasn't serious, she said. Just a few times. When you were so busy. I was busy expanding the business, I said flatly. I was lonely, Grant. How long? She closed her eyes. 11 months, she whispered. But it's done now. I swear it's over. I nodded slowly, letting that truth sink in like a stone in water. Thanks for finally being honest. That night, I packed most of my clothes and checked into an extended stay hotel. Clean, impersonal, sterile. Vanessa called 22 times. I answered on the 23. Is this really it? She asked, voice hoarse. After 12 years. You're just gone? I left 11 months ago, I said. You just didn't notice. You were with him. I made a mistake, she yelled. People make mistakes. No, I said. A mistake is missing our anniversary. A mistake is snapping at someone in a fight. What you did was a series of choices, hundreds of them. Every day you chose your wants over our marriage. I'll do anything, she sobbed. Just tell me how to fix this. I closed my eyes, feeling that familiar wave of exhaustion wash over me. There's nothing left to fix, Vanessa. Just wreckage to walk through. That night, in a bland hotel room with paper-thin walls, I didn't feel vindicated. No relief, just empty. I opened my laptop and started browsing real estate listings. It was time to build something new, from the ground up. Over the next few days, I combed through every recent contract Vanessa's company had signed. I matched conference photos to event schedules. I analyzed timelines and compared signatures. I wasn't looking for suspicion anymore. I was chasing truth. That's when I contacted Cal Becker. No, not the bottle. The man. A private investigator with a clean record and a long list of wealthy, discreet clients. CEOs, politicians, people who couldn't afford drama. Only results. We used burner phones. Met at a quiet dive bar halfway between Boulder and Denver. Cal nursed a black coffee as he leaned across the table. His face didn't give much away. So, he said finally, what exactly do you want me to find? And as I stared at the man who made a living digging up secrets, I realized this wasn't about catching her anymore. It was about uncovering every last truth she'd buried. I need to know the full scope, I told Cal. How far this thing really goes. 2 weeks later, he slid a thick manila envelope across a table in the corner booth we'd started using for our quiet meetings. Inside were photos, videos, travel logs, and one discovery that felt like a gut punch. Vanessa didn't wear her wedding ring at work. Not once. Worse yet, some of her coworkers didn't even know she was married. Eric, he picked her up after events like it was routine. They weren't hiding because she wasn't pretending to do anything wrong. I sat there in my hotel room with all the evidence laid out like exhibits at some emotional crime scene, but I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel betrayal. I felt nothing. It was like I was looking at someone else's life. Like I was studying wreckage from a ship I'd never boarded. Cal called to check in. So, what are you gonna do with all this? Nothing, I told him. She's already burned everything to the ground. I just needed to be sure I wasn't losing my mind. The next morning, I walked into Russell Grant's office, one of the sharpest divorce attorneys in Denver. Unlike the scorched earth lawyers who promised destruction, Russell specialized in clean exits. No unnecessary casualties, just swift and quiet freedom. I'm not after revenge, I explained, placing the folder on his desk. I just want out. But I also want her to know that I know. Russell flipped through the papers, nodding slowly. I'd advise against watching the videos. I already have, I said. I made myself watch them the night before, not to torture myself, but to cauterize whatever emotions were still clinging on. What timeline are we working with? He asked. That's when I laid out my plan. I wanted her served during the Haven Circle Charity Gala, the very event she'd spent months organizing. The one where Eric would be front and center as the charity's event director. Russell arched an eyebrow. You know, that borders on theatrical. It's not about embarrassment, I said quietly. It's about making the ending feel just as undeniable as the betrayal. The night of the gala, I pulled on the gray suit Vanessa used to say made me look like a mobster. I wasn't invited, obviously, but security was laughable for a non-profit cocktail event. I slipped in unnoticed. The grand hall was packed. Wine glasses clinking, donors mingling, laughter bouncing off the chandeliers. And then I spotted her. Vanessa stood near the center, surrounded by VIPs, champagne in hand, Eric lurking just behind her like a well-dressed shadow. She turned. Her eyes locked onto mine, and all the color drained from her face. I didn't hesitate. I walked straight toward her, every step deliberate. The circle around her fell silent as I approached. Hello, Vanessa, I said, voice calm, steady. Just thought you should know, this man signed a contract with your husband's company 3 weeks ago. Eric's eyebrows pulled into confusion. Vanessa's eyes went wide with panic. The donors around them began whispering. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a copy of the signed contract between Bailey and Moore and Eric Langford, placing it gently on the reception table. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away, ignoring Vanessa's voice calling after me. When I got home, I left the divorce papers on the dining table along with a short note. Contract files. I've known for a while. I hope you can be honest with yourself now. Then I grabbed my things and checked into a different hotel. New location. Fresh number. I locked down every social media account and told Russell's office to handle the rest. Vanessa called dozens of times that night. I didn't pick up. The next morning, I sent one final text. It's not the affair that broke us. It's that you let someone else touch a trust one can never reclaim. After that silence, heavy, deafening, but honest. 3 days later, Russell called. She signed the papers. No contest, he said. She's requesting a face-to-face meeting. No, I replied instantly. She's entitled to half the house, he reminded me. She can have all of it, I said. I've already found an apartment downtown. Russell paused. That's unusually generous. It's not generosity, I said. It's efficiency. I just want this over. What I didn't mention was that I'd already made arrangements. Found a new office downtown for Bailey and more. Trevor had agreed to buy out my share of the old suburban space. I was severing every tie to the life I used to live with surgical precision. That night, back at Marlene's bar, I sat quietly nursing a scotch. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. It was a message. I didn't know she was married until recently. I'm sorry, Eric. I didn't reply. I just blocked the number. Some apologies come too late to matter. But the fallout from the gala didn't miss its target. I didn't go public, but my quiet little stunt set Denver's event scene ablaze. Whispers turned into rumors. Rumors turned into reputations unraveling. Vanessa kept her job barely, but lost her lead coordinator role. Eric? Put on leave pending internal review at Haven Circle. I stayed out of the office for a few days, laying low while the dust settled. Trevor left voicemail after voicemail. He sounded anxious, then desperate. Eventually, I agreed to meet. Neutral ground downtown coffee shop. No drama. When I walked in, Trevor looked like hell. Pale, twitchy, eyes ringed with guilt. Grant. I've been worried sick, he said, standing up. Are you holding up okay? I'm good, I said flat. Better than I thought I'd be. He fiddled with the lid on his coffee cup, eyes darting. Listen, there's something I need to confess. And in that moment, I knew whatever came next wasn't going to help. It was only going to bury the knife deeper. I knew she and Eric were spending time together, Trevor admitted, barely meeting my eyes. But I didn't know how serious it was, and I didn't think it was my place to step into your marriage. I looked at him, really looked. This was the man I'd built a business with, someone I'd trusted for nearly 20 years. But now I couldn't see him the same. Did you know it was an affair? I asked. He hesitated, then gave a quiet nod. I suspected. Rachel mentioned Vanessa seemed lighter lately. Happier. Said she had this coworker who really understood her. But Grant. I never thought it would go this far. I didn't blink. Did you keep quiet because you were afraid of losing our friendship or because you didn't want the company's image dragged through the mud? Trevor opened his mouth, then closed it again. No words. Just silence. That was all the answer I needed. You'll have the dissolution paperwork on your desk tomorrow, I said, standing up. I want to sell my shares within 45 days. Grant, wait, he reached out. We built this together because we shared values. Loyalty was always number one. Exactly, I said. And you failed that test. That evening, Rachel called me. Her voice was shaky, full of emotion. Please, Grant, don't walk away from everything. Vanessa's completely shattered. She's not sleeping, she's not eating. That's not my burden to carry anymore. You can't erase 12 years, she pressed. You still love her. Everyone makes mistakes. I didn't fall in love with a mirage, I said coldly. And I don't forgive people who treat trust like a party favor. I ended the call and blocked her number right after. The next morning, I sent the official paperwork to begin my withdrawal from Bailey and more. Only one person got an invitation to join me in what came next, Natalie Brooks, my assistant of 5 years. She said yes without even asking for details. The place wasn't going to feel right without you anyway. While clearing out my personal files, I saw an email pop up, unexpected and oddly timed. It was from Margaret Doyle, Vanessa's mother. Subject line, a request if you'll grant it. Her message was short. If you have time, please come see me. I'm not here to defend my daughter. I just want to speak to the man I once hoped would be my son-in-law. I drove to her house the next afternoon. I didn't know what I was walking into. Margaret waited on the porch. She looked older. Sadder. We didn't waste time. Inside, she pulled open a filing cabinet and handed me a folder. Vanessa would be furious if she knew I kept these, Margaret said. But mothers, sometimes our instincts tell us things we don't want to believe. Inside were old emails, printed texts, handwritten letters, years' worth between Vanessa and Rachel. They weren't just catching up. These messages were strategic, cold, clinical. Discussions on how to read a man's emotions, how to manage him so he'd never walk away. Some of it was from Vanessa's college years. But the tone hadn't changed, not even in the most recent ones. "My daughter didn't win you over by accident," Margaret said softly. "She studied you. Treated you like a project." I flipped through the pages, stopping at one in particular. A message from Rachel. "Grant's the type who values honesty above everything. Use that. When you lie, make it small. Add a detail that feels real. He'll never look deeper." My skin went cold. "Why show me this?" I asked, my voice low. Margaret looked at me, her eyes glassy but steady. "Because I raised her. And I enabled too much. When she met you, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd changed. But she didn't. I'm sorry." As I stood to leave, Margaret reached for my arm. "I know you'll never go back to her. I'm not asking for that. I just want you to know, if you ever need proof this wasn't your fault, I'm here. I'm the one person she can't discredit." I left her house feeling empty but strangely lighter. Not vindicated. Not Russellius. Just unburdened. It wasn't that I'd failed. It was that I'd been playing a rigged game from the start, a game I didn't even know I'd entered. That night, I filed the paperwork for my new company. Cornerstone Media. A clean foundation. A future I could build with my own hands. The next morning, Natalie walked into my temporary office holding a coffee and a folded newspaper. "You're gonna want to see this," she said, setting it down and pointing to the business section. Bailey and Moore had lost 3 major clients overnight. According to the article, ethical concerns had been raised behind closed doors. Sources were unnamed, but the implication was clear. I pushed the paper aside. "Not our problem anymore." "You don't look happy about it," Natalie said gently. "I'm not," I admitted. "Even when it's deserved, watching things fall apart doesn't feel good." That afternoon, a courier dropped off a handwritten letter from Trevor. It said one thing. "You were right about loyalty. I failed the test. I'm buying your shares at 50% above market." I signed the papers. No comment. No emotion. Then I packed what was left of my old life and moved west. A quiet little town in the Colorado mountains. Clean air. Room to think. I bought a modest 2-story farmhouse. A wraparound porch. More space than I needed, but somehow just right. My new business specialized in rebuilding reputations after personal or public scandals. The kind of lifeline I wish I'd had when my own world fell apart. Funny how we end up creating the very thing we once needed most. Vanessa, of course, didn't stop trying. Emails became daily. Then weekly. Letters showed up, long, desperate, handwritten. Gifts started arriving at my door. I hadn't shared my new address anywhere. Someone had leaked it. I didn't care enough to find out who. None of it mattered anymore. One afternoon, Russell called. "Bad news," he said. "She's refusing to finalize the divorce unless you agree to joint counseling." I didn't respond right away. I just sat there. My first instinct was to shut it down, to protect the clean break I'd carved out with so much effort. But then I realized maybe there was something else I needed to do first. Word was she still worked the same job, though not with the same spark. From what mutual acquaintances have said, the circle of friends that once cheered her choices has quietly crumbled. Miranda packed up and moved to Florida after getting entangled in a lawsuit with a married man. It didn't end well. Holly's affair blew up in her face when her husband found out and cleaned her out in the divorce. Kristen? Her suburban fairy tale fell apart when her husband caught her and the landscaper in the pool house. And Shannon? Every now and then she still texts Liam, birthdays, holidays, graduation stuff. Nothing deep, nothing apologetic, no mention of the past. Last I heard, she was dating some guy, a 4-time divorce who can't hold a job but knows how to order champagne with someone else's credit card. I don't feel triumphant about any of it. There's no gloating. Just a quiet understanding. Some people spend their lives chasing what they already had and never realize it until it's too far gone. One warm June evening, Elena and I sat on the back patio watching the sun dip behind the mountains. Inside, the boys were locked in a heated debate over which toppings to put on the pizza for movie night. The basketball hoop I'd installed years ago stretched its shadow across the driveway, the same driveway where so many after-dinner games had happened, the kind that ended in laughter and scraped knees. Elena suddenly turned to me and said, "The first time I came here, I thought I'd always be living in Shannon's shadow." I took her hand, gently brushing my thumb over the simple gold band that now replaced her old engagement ring. "Never," I said. "You're not the shadow. You're the light that came after it. She smiled, that soft, grounding smile, and kissed me on the cheek. You know what today is? She asked. I shook my head. It's been exactly 5 years since my divorce finalized. I raised my glass of iced tea. Well then, cheers to surviving hell. She leaned in and whispered, and thank you for not leaving me there. Later that night, I stepped out onto the balcony off our bedroom just in time to catch the tail end of one last round of basketball. Liam nailed a clean mid-range jumper and Noah broke into a goofy little dance that would have horrified him if anyone outside the family had seen it. Elena appeared in the doorway wrapped in her favorite oversized cardigan even though the night air was still warm. She held a mug of chamomile tea, ice full of that steady warmth that still makes my heart pause even after 3 years of marriage. And right then it hit me. The joy I felt with her, it wasn't like anything I'd known before. With Shannon, I had been cast in a role, husband, provider, father, expected to perform, to meet the script someone else had written. But with Elena? I was chosen. And every single day she still chose me. Just like I chose her. Not out of obligation. Not out of fear or routine. But because we genuinely wanted to share life, the quiet moments, the loud ones, the messy ones, together. Sometimes, the most beautiful endings don't take you back where you started, they take you somewhere entirely new. Somewhere you were meant to be all along. That night, as we lay in bed, her head resting on my shoulder, the sound of our boys still laughing downstairs, I understood something I hadn't before. The betrayal that once shattered my world had actually cleared the path for me to build a better one. Because sometimes what looks like an ending is just the detour that finally leads you home.